Well, hello, and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey, chapter 376. It is the second day of the week, aka the special beam cannon workout. I am feeling very good right now, very excited for this workout. But, anyways, to the main subject matter for today, integrity. So, the main reason why I wanted to talk about integrity in particular is because of a incident that's happening currently in the fitness realm with Dr. Mike Israetel, or just Mr. Mike Israetel, who is basically getting reamed over the coals because he ended up basically just lying about a whole situation about his dissertation or whatever, and rightfully criticized because obviously it wasn't a great work, but at the same time, instead of owning up to it, at the beginning of it, there was a long, weird, drawn-out phase of things happening where it wasn't a real draft, it wasn't the final draft, but then all of a sudden it was the final draft, and now throwing everybody under the sun, under the bus. So it is a fascinating thing to see. But the main thing, and I think that this is the most interesting thing to see about this, and the issue with a lot of these things when it comes to not just like specifically like fitness realm things, but generally speaking, when people get too big or just get big, too big to fail, is the integrity section of it. And I think that that's the main reason why a lot of people end up disliking a lot of these people who end up becoming so influential, quote unquote, or big or huge. And in this case, Mr. Mike here is very big, obviously. So there is a lack of integrity that is seen in such a thing, as he is one to throw around the doctor aspect of his background. And because of that, because he ends up throwing the doctor part of it, it shows a interesting lack of integrity when you see what got him that. And it's interesting. So today we're going to be talking about integrity in general, and also why it's so important, and particularly if you're on just the internet in general, because as much as you can get away with producing a character or making up lies, literally fantastical things, or whatever you want to mold your internet personality to. If you don't have integrity, the bigger you become, the more and more people will start seeing the cracks. And at a certain point, people are going to want to see you fail because you're either influencing too much, or more realistically, because you have built a false facade of stuff, people are going to just stop believing you. And thus, if you are spreading information with that, it's just not going to be a good thing. But we'll talk more about that and a few other things when we get to Mother Base. All right, so started this day off with squats, which were pretty good. But anyways, integrity. So today we're going to start with integrity. Noun. Firm adherence to a code of especially moral or artistic values. Incorruptible. Or 2, an unimpaired condition. Or 3, the quality or state of being complete and or undivided. So the main reason why I wanted to start with that is because I feel like defining what integrity is will help talk about the entire idea of it, of course. And obviously, this comes with a level of honesty, in which case that is hard for people to do, whether it is to themselves or to the world. But that's kind of a different story. We'll talk about that some other day. I think that a lot of people lack the integrity, as we are very much willing to bend and break certain codes that people have, particularly in themselves, in order to justify doing other things to themselves or justifying actions that they can or cannot do. More time than not, even people that would say that the things that they are doing would be bad, they would justify them to be okay because of any reason or another. It's, for example, family or whatever other type of thing that might be there for the injustice to finally incur and thus make it morally okay. But a lot of the time people do that and just forget about their own morals and the integrity that they hold within themselves. And I think a lot of people, it gnaws on certain people.
I think that it gnaws on the people that actually have the integrity to do something on this. If you have a certain level of dishonesty within the world, you are lacking of the integrity, and thus you are not seen or cannot be truly good or evil or whatever you can, because regardless of whether you go towards one side or the other, it doesn't necessarily matter if you don't have any actual sticking to it, sticking to itness, When it comes to things like the credentials, the integrity of that, and all this other stuff, I think the main reason why it's so bothersome to a lot of people with this particular situation was the fact that even though Mr. Mike was using his platform and using what is the fake integrity of a degree in order to show that he's giving out the good, valuable information, now once people see behind the curtain, they realize that that was a false illusion. And I think that revealing of the false illusion is really what releases the veil that the people like this have on others, and they realize, oh, they're actually not very strict on their moral code. They use something as a surrogate for what the realities of the situation are. That's why certain people can get away with doing something like that for a long time, but it's the over-reliance on something like that where people will start investigating, because of course, once you just point to something, somebody's gonna start looking at it and analyzing it. I think that's the biggest thing. It's interesting to me because I think that a lot of people use integrity as a way to understand whether or not somebody is honest or not, but a lot of the time it is thrown away at the wayside because of how easy it is to manipulate others into believing that you having some sort of integrity within yourself. You can put that front up relatively easily, but people do not understand that obviously it's just a front. And it sucks because a lot of the time this can mislead, and not only mislead, but persuade people that will be guided away from the places or things that they should actually be learning about, or at least learning from, Now, obviously there are certain things that it doesn't work necessarily. Obviously seeing isn't necessarily always believing, but at the same time, there is some level of proof that you need in order to back up these claims. Of course, it's the entire idea of the fat personal trainer. You're not going to trust him as much because you don't know what his personal integrity is. Of course, now it makes sense in very, very little aspects of it. Like, for example, if the trainer is fat, but also is fat because he is retired and knows a bunch of knowledge of the situation, then it's a little different. But then they're using that past skills in order to show that they have integrity within what they know. It's past accolades. And I think that once people can actually prove the past accolades with legitimacy, which is a very rare thing to find on the internet nowadays, it is the one thing that will probably make somebody actually worth listening to. But because we live in an age of the internet and people can make shit up at a dime of a hat, we could just say, fuck it, I'm a sports scientist all of a sudden. Fuck it, I'm working on my doctorate. I could be working on my doctorate for years, and just kind of like slowly creep the label in or whatever, because it's the fucking internet and anybody can lie. It's kind of a terrible thing. But the thing is, once you find people that dislike you, they are going to keep digging because they do not give a fuck about you and they want to make sure that you have a downfall. And you got to always be aware of that, because I think a lot of people will overlook that, but then we'll get to that point where they realize that they've basically bankrupted their morality, and thus they are become a hollow shell of their former self, because everybody knows now that everything that they're saying is full of shit.
And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercises not filmed, none. Exercises skipped, also none. Got everything in, thankfully. But anyways, to the main subject matter for today. Integrity. So the main reason why I wanted to discuss this is because I think that with the entire thing that's happening with the PhD, with Mr. Mike and all that other stuff, is that the fact that that a lot of people are saying, like, who cares? What does it matter? Why is it that we are looking at a dissertation with such a fine tooth and comb? All these things. But I think a lot of the people that are saying this are not realizing that without the integrity of the baseline as to what made him get his credentials, then thus it makes it so that everything else that is said by him is now in question. It's like as if, just like everything else, like trust, if you don't build the base up from a solid foundation, you're going to be fucked later on once the cracks start showing. Because at the end of the day, if you build a fundamentally sound base, everything else that's built up around it should be fine. But if you don't build up that base on something that is foundationally sound, the house is going to crumble eventually. And sometimes it could be sooner rather than later. But sometimes you can get away with not having the house crumble if you run certain ops to make sure that this will be memory hold off and go away as time progresses, and pray that other people don't really care about the integrity of how things happen, and instead just what you've done. What have you done for me lately? Which is a new modern phenomena, of course, taught. But that's a whole other story. I think the thing is, I think that this shows a level of what is considered importance in certain people, because I think it's important that people have some integrity when at least talking about these things. Here in this channel, I don't know anything. I am low on the IQ scale. Retarded. I'm just going to say it. But at the same time, this is just my outlet. This isn't necessarily me trying to be an authority or a figure. I'm not calling myself smarter than anybody else, nor am I putting myself into a place of saying, you're wrong, I'm right. I'm giving out my opinions, but I could be totally wrong about shit. It just happens to happen. But at the same time, I'm also not trying to be an authority on this. Like, I'm the one that is 100% correct about this, or calling myself a doctor or something like that. Hell, I wouldn't even call myself a coach or anything like that. I'm not there. I don't have what I would consider decent credentials, not even proper, because I don't know what the hell proper would even be. But still, I think that's the entire point, right? We have been told by many, many, many people over many centuries that academia should be the proper thing to uphold an integrity that should be able to be passed on to the next class of student, and be able to go out there and do whatever they need to do, especially when you're going into that high level of science and all that other stuff. Because realistically, if you're getting a PhD in something, you would hope that the person would know a lot, or at least be extremely competent in their field, to the point where you would feel okay with allowing them to lead, right? But if how they got there were shortcuts, or just not really the 100% vigor that it would need for something like that to be passed in a reputable place, then you start questioning everything. What shortcuts also have been made? Is everything that you're doing 100% correct? Now, of course, this doesn't necessarily have to be about not every single paper or dissertation has to be a masterpiece, but also at the same time, there are certain corners that just shouldn't be cut, like basic grammar and citation mistakes, things that are rough around the edges that you could probably easily just go over again. Now, of course, there are the exception of a little bit of a grammar mistake or two, but still, the entire point is that this baseline makes it so this is evident of what could be in the future, especially because this is the end, really. This should be the student magnus opus, you know what I mean? So this should be your best work, your best foot forward into the world of science or whatever the hell you're doing. But of course, this always changes with people, because I feel like once you get into it, as long as you're in the club. As soon as you're in the club, you're in it. And then if you're not in it, you're out of it quickly. So, but that's kind of a different story for a different day. But it's just interesting to see how quickly a person's integrity can be called into question once people realize that they've cut a few corners. So it's very integral to what is YouTube, because I think a lot of people want to see a level of integrity in the person, because it is you in the YouTube that makes sense. See this video right here about that. But anyways, with that being said, Tell me what you think in the comments section down below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. This one was something topical, but still, nonetheless, something that would fit along the lines of this channel. But please let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody who may or may not like it. I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I will see you in the next one. Keep it heavy. Stay safe out there. Stay warm. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.